the mom looked at me and said, so you, when are we coming for your own wedding? Eh? And I'm like, I'm like, these bullets, why, how did I become the recipient of these bullets? God, I'm like, what did I do? She's like, oh, so hi guys, how are you all doing today? You'll be I don't know if you'll be surprised with the new gear. We've been working to get all this organized. My only problem is that this is covering my face, but I'm sure with more tweaks here and there, we'll be able to get it sorted. How are you all doing today? As you all know, I have already said it before, I will be launching my podcast. Okay. Been working around the clock. But yeah, I'm working on that. Okay. All right. So today would be my first official video of 2024. Yay! And so I want to officially welcome you all back with me. I also noticed that my subscriber count has pushed. So for many of you who don't know me, my name is Chinyere and you're very welcome. And if you are a returning subscriber, thank you so much for being here. So today's video, we're going to be talking about how I was pressured to get married at 29. No, actually, no, it's not 29. How I was pressured to get married right after school. Okay. All right, so how you guys doing? So and this video I'm making it for the purpose of those who are experiencing this, because I will not lie to you that I did not experience it or I did not go through it, but I'm going to tell you what I did. Okay, so I got married actually at age 29. And that was when I really wanted to get married. That was the age I told God that it was going to happen. So I also knew that I knew that I was going to get married outside of Nigeria. I knew I was going to meet my husband. I just knew. I don't know. I just knew. And so I went to school in the East. Many of you might have heard me say it before, of Nigeria, eastern part of Nigeria. And so in that part of the world where I was, and I mean, again, I'm so grateful I schooled there because I've lived all my life practically in the West, but I'm so grateful I schooled in the East for a lot of reasons, because I became quite savvy, and it afforded me the opportunity to actually relearn my mother tongue properly, because I could understand but I could not express myself to speak properly. And so yes, I do speak about 5 languages, and that's simply because I've been able to immerse myself in those places. Anywho, and so going there, my upbringing, everything I knew had nothing to do with a woman getting married early. And so at the time I think it was the second year, third year, I had a lot of people, a lot of girls, my classmates, talking about getting married, and I was looking at them like really weird. I'm like, yeah, what is wrong with these people? Mind you, I got into university at the age of 17, almost 18. I was going to be 18 that year. So yeah, I was still 17 years, So I was like, what's wrong with these people? Why are they talking about getting married so quickly? I didn't get it. I didn't understand, Meanwhile, I had actually my family friend who had gotten married pretty early as well, which I didn't stomach good, because I was like, why would she be getting married so early? I didn't get it. So while in Enugu, there was something that was quite obvious. Marriage was a flag. Marriage was like an achievement. So a girl came out of was in school and she got married. It was like that was the ultimate goal in life, and it made no sense to me. I didn't get it. And so I recall, I think at the age of 21, because I graduated at the age of 23. If you add strikes, Nigerian strikes, I graduated at the age of 23. And so at the time, I recall my friends, around me, like, I want to marry. And I'm like, I began to feel quite uncomfortable because, in all honesty, I wasn't there, I was having fun. I mean, this is me having freedom that I have not had for 70 years. What? So I wasn't seeing that, but I was feeling the pressure because it was like there were comments of, if you're not married by the time you finish school, then you've missed it. If you're not married by the time you're out of school, nobody will marry. That kind of thing. That was what I was hearing. And so I recall my friend was getting married. I remember at the time then, because I after school, after the university, it began to weigh on me that, I had no one, basically, even though I was dating someone, my ex, but it was like, I have nobody, that was what weighed on me. And that's a story for another day anyway, so let me not digress. And so I recall my friend was getting married and I went to her house and I was like, and as I just got there, the mom looked at me and said, so when are we coming for your own wedding, eh? And I'm like, I'm like, this bullet, why? How did I become the recipient of this bullet? God, I'm like, what did I do? She was like, no, not my parents, my friend's mom. I was like, no. What are you doing? You should be married by the time you're finished from school. You should have this. I'm like, okay. How am I being pressured for something I can't control? Remember, things were not looking too great between me and my ex. And I've talked about it in the previous video. I'm going to add it here. And so, in the course of this, my journey, we went to another friend of mine went to her village, and we're her Ashwebi girls. The same questions kept popping up, so when are you getting married? I'm like, what is it? And I recall just before that, I met this guy, before I met my ex anyway. I recall I met this guy who came to Enugu at the time from Abuja. Igbo guy, not too tall, okay. And we met and he liked me. He said he liked me. Like, okay. And so we, went out a couple of times. And then I recall at one point, because he had to go back since he had his business in Abuja. He's had his businesses in Abuja. And so he had to go back. And I recall him, after a while, he invited me over to Abuja to come see him, And I was like, yeah, why not? So I left Enugu and was on my way to Abuja. But then what I did not tell him was that I had family in Abuja because my aunt lived in Abuja at the time. So I called my aunt, told my parents, I said, I'm going to Abuja, but I'll be staying at so and so person's, at Auntie's house. They're like, fine, And so I went to Abuja at the time. And then getting to Abuja, I call him and I'm like, oh, I'm in Abuja, but, my aunt is coming to pick me up from the motor park. So there's no need for you to be here. He was like, oh, he didn't. I'm like, oh, no, don't worry. My aunt has I live, listen, I'm Igbo. There are things we don't do. Whether your parents are there or not, there are things you don't do, So he was like, okay. And he was fine with it, in all honesty. He was really fine with it, And so I get to my aunt's house, drop my stuff, we talk, have dinner and all. Then the next day, my aunt is, preparing for work. But she then takes the time to tell me, show me around and says, okay, this is how I move. I want to go from here to there, point A to B, and blah blah blah. And I tell her, okay, I want to see a friend of mine who lives so and so place. And she was like, okay, fine, why not? And so she directs me on how to go and how to get there. So I call him and like, okay, I'm on my way, and I get there. And then, he was so happy, Mind you, I haven't known this person up to 3 or 4 months. He was really happy, and he was like, okay, that, we sat down. He had a store, a cosmetic store at the time, if I'm not wrong. And then, we sat down, we got talking. And then towards evening, I think that was around 4 or 5, he invites me to his house, and personally, I was like, yeah, fine, why not? So we get to his house. I meet his junior ones or so, or his brother, or his boys. I don't know. In the life of traders, they have people who work in their stores. And so I meet his boys, and they all say hi. They're pretty nice and courteous. And so I recall that at that point, all of a sudden they all began to disappear one by one. I'm like, okay, what's going on? Where are these people going to? But I didn't, because the guy had never given me any reason to see him as someone who was dangerous or funny. And honest, I think that's one of the most that's one of the guys I have ever felt comfortable with before. I usually, when I meet a guy for the first time, then I used to be quite, jittery. And so, I recall we get talking, and he changes, his countenance changes, and I notice he's holding something in his hand. And mind you, I was 21 at this time. I noticed he had something in his hand, and I'm like, hey, oh God, see, as Chinyere will just has entered one chance now. God, And this was me talking to myself, hey, I've done enter one chance, so But then no, he looks up to me and he brings out a ring. Yeah? Ring. Hey, God, at 21. Now at that point, in all honesty, my mind was doing backflips, and I was excited. You know why? Oh, somebody actually wants to marry me. That was my brain, that was my mindset. Oh, somebody actually wants to marry me. I also had the mindset of I would accept. Or, I would accept and go back to school and tell my friends that I accepted to get married to someone, even though I knew I didn't want to get married to the person. This was my mind. So when he asks, what comes out of my mouth is no. I'm like, hell no, because the no was stronger than any other thing that was going in my head. I'm like, oh no. And he looks at me like, no. And he says, why? I said, do you know how old I am? In fact, I said, do you know how young I am? I didn't say, I said, do you know how young I am? Says, I said, hey, God, I'm 21. You want to marry me? No, Mba. I said, I'm still a child. It was so funny. And this guy goes, but you're old of age. I said, one thing I always knew about getting married young was, what did I know I was going to do there? I knew I was not matured in my brain, in everything. I didn't have maturity of mind. At the time, for me, what I saw around me was having fun. I did not see it as a reason. So you couldn't be coming to me with that. And I told him, I was very clear. I'm like, dude, I'm young. I'm very, very young. And I told him, I said, secondly, I don't have the maturity of mind and spirit to be there to marry. I didn't know what I was going to do with kids. I didn't want to start carrying children, babies around me. That was no feather to my cap, And I recall, I also had this other incident where, she actually found out she was my cousin later, who was actually reprimanding me. She was reprimanding me for not getting married as quickly as possible, because she was married. She was getting married. In fact, she was married and she was already pregnant, and she was flaunting the pregnancy like it was, next level, she would come, and then she had this cup where she used to spit. Gosh. And I was like, why are you doing that? I later found out that she's my cousin though, but I never knew all the while we were there. I never knew. I had no idea. And so that by the time I was in my final year at school, at the university, I began to feel, I began to feel a kind of weight on my chest, And one thing I've loved about my person is I have a strong, stubborn spirit. Physically, I could seem compliant. My spirit is the one that is the strongest. And so even though I would look and be feeling down, physically, outwardly, inwardly, my spirit kept telling me, you're not ready. This is not the time. No, don't make that mistake. And this has happened to me in everything I've ever done. And I recall I met this, I now formed a friendship with another friend of mine. I recall, I went to her house on this day. And I was old, and I happened to be older than her. So I went to her house on this day. Right off the bat, at the door, the mom looks at me and says, when are you getting married? I pull back because that question was not friendly, it was quite aggressive. And it's different when mothers are the ones asking those questions. Now, my parents, on the other hand, we're not bothered. We're not asking those questions because I'd never brought anybody to the house. Again, I'm Igbo, I'm Nigerian. When you're growing up, they tell you no boy should come near, that was how it was. And so in my own brain at the time, I was not going to my especially my dad, because my dad was very strict on that. Even when I had come of age, when I finished from the university, and guys would come, my dad would ask me, who is this person? And I would say, oh, it's just my friend. I never introduced anybody to my dad as a boyfriend. I never, and I knew it bothered him, but my parents never for one moment uttered those words and said, when are you getting, never, I wouldn't say it bothered him. There's one thing I know about my dad. My dad always wanted his kids to soar. He just wanted us to do what we wanted to do and be great. That was him, so that question never came up, but he would ask, if a guy came to the house and knocked on the door and said, hi, I'm here to see Chinyere, my father would come and ask, so who is this person? He would always ask, but I always like, no, it's just my friend, so my parents never, but the people around me, their moms, because most of my friends told me and will always tell me that I had a very, very good, I had a very nice rapport with their moms, and I don't know, because I would go, I never saw it as anything, but I would go and I would be gisting with their moms, talking, doing, and we'll be I've had many of my friends like that, and they would tell me that you really, really, really are very good with our moms than they are, And so when I began, now I had finished university, and then I had begun to look at myself, and I'm like, okay, what am I, I was thinking towards getting a job, career, name it. And so I began to write a list. Now I wrote, when Nicole Ari Parker talked about that list, I didn't know who she was at the time. I didn't know who she was. And, I think it was just very recently that she shared that story. thanks to social media. So I had this list. And I wrote in that list the age I wanted to get married. And I was clear on it. The age I wanted to get married, what I was looking for, everything I had streamlined and it was written. And why was I able to do that? I was able to do that because I had gone through one hell of a relationship. And so it was pretty clear to me what I wanted and what I was looking for in any relationship. And so I wrote it down. At that point, I felt this was the age I could and where I wanted to marry from. Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, I got it. Yes, I got married at that age, 29. I did everything. Everything that was on that paper came to be. I got him. I got him. I got him whom God kept for me. No other person. And I met him in the abroad, just as my mind, my spirit told me. No joke. No joke. And so when these things happened, I remember my friend, when I went to buy her Ashwebi just before I left, and she was the only one out of our friends I told I was leaving Nigeria. She was like, why are you buying Ashwebi? You're not here. I'm like, I'll buy it. I wasn't going to. I'm like, don't worry, I'll buy the Ashwebi. I felt at that point, what I was doing was, I was sewing, I was making, I was creating a line or a link towards, as you're getting married, I will be getting married. And I actually did have a dream about it. I had the dream that I got a ring here. I did not know which country it was. I didn't know if it was in France, because France was not the country that I was supposed to be in. I was supposed to be in another country. And so I didn't know if it was going to be France or the US or the UK. But I knew that I saw it as clear as day. And so, that singular incident in my life got me to understand that pressure is nothing. Pressure in whatever is happening. Never. Don't ever feel pressured to do anything. Let your mind be yours. And I thank God for the kind of spirit he gave me, because I said, physically I would look downcast, but in my mind, my spirit was strong and would tell me, you're not going anything, you're not doing anything, don't worry. It was that strong. And so pressure means nothing, because every one of us have our time. We have our day. We have our moment. You see, this world is a fan. On this side, it will blow. It's cooling at that side for now. But it's going to still turn around. It's like the sun. There are places that have light with the sun's rays, and there are places that don't. And then it will have to go through its orbit again and then pass on to the next time. And so then we be in darkness and another place has their light. It's the same thing. No one is pressuring the sun. It's just doing its work. And that is the same with us. Our mission, everything that we are, there is no need to pressure oneself to do it. It's supposed to happen at its time. And so when I listened to, there was a day I was listening to the Honest Sponge on a podcast, and I recall the episode with Charles. Sorry, it wasn't the Honest Sponge. Sorry, it was with Chude. I was listening to with Chude with Charles Inogie, and he said that what you are afraid of is afraid of you too, and it's true. And that thing sunk in. I will never forget what he said when he said it. He said, what you're afraid of is afraid of you too. And so when you think about things like that, you will realize that sometimes you may want something, you may put your hand in something, it's not working. Doesn't mean that it's not going to work. It just means that it's not yet time. And I have so many stories like that about things that have worked out for me excellently. It was like, when you put a puzzle in place and it just clicks, or you put a bolt somewhere and it just and it clicks. You just know that it's the hand of God doing what he's doing in your life at that time. And so there's no pressure. There is only your time. And on this note, guys, thank you so much for listening to me on this edition of my podcast, the Couch Podcast with Juliet Style Glam. Do not fail to like, share, and subscribe, and leave your comments in the comment section below. And thank you all so much for being here. And thank you all so much for listening in today. And thank you all so much for being with me on this video. Do not fail to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Please subscribe, please. It doesn't cost you anything. Subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys. I mean, your subscription helps me. It encourages me to do more. It encourages me to want to actually put in the work. And no lie, it encourages me to put in the work, And please share this video, like the video, share, because again, it's all part of it. The more I get from you, the more I'm able to give, And I'll see you guys in my next video. Thank you.